Have you ever thought about the fact that just one thought can ruin your dreams of immigrating to a new country or even your life? I'm Zarelsi, the migration mentor, and I'm a career strategist and mentor to hundreds of highly skilled immigrants around the world who want to become successful citizens of their new countries. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how just one thought or a couple of thoughts can completely ruin your dreams of immigrating to your new destination country. Now, you are all probably familiar with the common theme of TFAR, or thoughts leads to feelings, leads to actions, leads to results. It's Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich who's actually made this a very common thing today too. Now, this is something that is applicable to your whole life, not just you as an immigrant. But let me show you a couple of examples of this in action and how it actually affects your journey as an immigrant, wanting a new life and destination country, or trying to find a job, or anything in your immigration journey which this is applicable on. Let me give you an example. When I was still in police, I spent 10 years in police in South Africa, 10 years in police in New Zealand. We were given some driver training, and the driver training was just, how to do a pursuit. And a pursuit is just chasing someone else in a car. But the driver training was conducted by people who were professional drivers in motor racing. And one of the things that they taught us was that our mind will prevent us from crashing, because a crash was your biggest risk as a driver or in a pursuit behind someone else. And how to avoid a crash was actually not just based on your skill as a driver. It was very much a mental thing. And it all started with a thought. That thought was about whether you were going to crash or not. And I think many of you have seen this in action, some people driving, in a sports vehicle or in a bumper car, and you would get this thing about, I'm going to crash, and then they do. And it has all got to do with about what you are focused on. If you're focused on going to crash, you will crash. That is just simple as it is. So that thought will lead to a feeling, will lead to an action, and will lead to a result. And the reason that they taught us this driver training and the mental way of overcoming this was to steer away from focusing on the crash. So if we were approaching a wall and we were anticipating that we're going to crash into that wall, the mental way of overcoming this was to focus on the next thing or on something else. So if you're going to focus on the wall and saying, I'm going to crash into this wall, I need to steer away and do something about this wall, you are still focused on the wall. And the wall is the last thing that you wanted to crash into. So the opposite way of avoiding this was to focus on something else. So we were taught about how to focus on something else, on the next corner, or on something else that was different to the wall, or in our own actions that was getting us through this corner and would avoid the wall, but it wasn't focused on the wall. It was focused on something else. So it's very applicable to anything that you do as an immigrant trying to find a job too. I have so many clients, so many people trying to find a job so hard and being so afraid, and doubt and fear creeping into their mentality and their mind and the mental game so much that all they can think about is that I won't find a job, I won't find a job, I won't be able to find a job. What if I can't find a job? What if I fail? What if I crash? They are so focused on this crashing and then on this failure that they can't seem to focus on anything else. They can't take the actions that is required to do the other things, which will actually steer them away from the crash, away from the failure. And that happens to most people I work with, because that doubt and that fear is natural. It is your natural instinct to wonder what's going to happen. With that wonder, that's the thought. Will I ever be able to find a job? That's a thought. Maybe I will fail. It's only a thought. What if I fail? It's a thought. What if I can't find a job and I've spent all this money, time and effort on this? It's a thought. So the thought then becomes a feeling of negativity, of doubt, of fear, of not trusting yourself and the process that you're following and the negative feelings that go with it. It's sort of a bad spiral. That feeling becomes actions. So your actions relates to things that you actually begin to do. Instead of doing positive things, doing the positive actions, taking the positive steps and the right processes, you're going to start acting in an opposite way. And those actions can include things like frustration, anger, and all kinds of things that you're going to have towards other people, resentment, and all those things. And I see that coming through. Someone goes to an interview and they don't get the job and they start finding fault with the people who interviewed them. It's actions that stems from negative feelings. So instead of taking that time and that effort to focus on the next one and the next actions and the positive things of another job or another opportunity or building connections, building relationships, getting to influences and people who can help you, they're directing their actions in a wrong place. And those actions leads to results. So what are results? You will crash, period. That's it. You will fail. If you follow this path of negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative actions, negative results will follow. So if you're going to be focused on the crash and the failure and the wall, you can have one thing guaranteed. You will crash into that wall. I can guarantee you that. So instead of focusing on the wall and the crash, focus on things that you can do that doesn't have anything to do with that. Focus on building relationships. Focus on the connections, which is the first part of building relationships. Focus on building connections with influencers, people who are able to help you find a job. Focus on fostering those relationships. Focus on seeking the opportunities that are hidden in the market. Focus on the right processes, which are not the scattergun approach. Focus away from the crash on the things that are actually known to work. And what happens then? It leads to positive feelings. It leads to hope. It leads to discovery. It leads to learning. It leads to growth. And that will end up, the result of that process, it will end up in getting you a job. It's just a question of time. So no one can guarantee you how long that process will take, but there is no other way of absolutely getting a job. Making your immigration journey a result of that whole process. So if you want to know how doubt in one thought can lead to the demise of your immigration dream, focus on the crash and focus on the failure and send me an email every day saying, oh, I will never get a job and I can't do this and this is too hard and maybe I will fail. I can promise you that you will fail then, but focus away from it, focus on the things that you're supposed to do and the right processes, patience and perseverance, and I can guarantee you, you will get a job and you will make your immigration journey a success. So TFAR, thoughts leads to feelings, leads to actions, leads to results. Focus away from the crash. See you next time.